we weren't as all buddy as we are now. When I called John and said I'd like to get some of your copies of some of your stuff, the response was actually kind of get lost. I don't have time for that nonsense. And then he found out I was a real estate appraiser, and he did need a real estate appraisal, and then the deal took place. And I had brought Bob with me, and it was funny because I had never seen anybody treat Bob with such disdain as John did. John just thought he was some little kid that I brought, with me to hold the other end of the measuring tape when we measured his house. And about the third time that I said, he used to work down at Los Alamos, John finally listened and said, you used to work at Los Alamos? And then the conversation started.
So the reason I raised these questions, the issues of how you guys all met, is because there are critics out there who believe that John is somehow the evil puppet master who created this whole thing, who talked Bob into making this story up, that you guys are all in this together. But the reality is you didn't really know each other, and it kind of fell into place.
Oh, and there are giant personal things going on behind the scenes here. It wasn't all, this easy and cut and dried. There were a lot of coincidences that took place, in Bob's personal life, things that went on that, would just not really be fodder for this radio show. It sounds a lot more convenient than it was, but yeah, it was a lot of synchronicity, a lot of sheer coincidence that made things turn out the way they did.
The amazing part of it, Bob the photo guy meets Gene the appraiser. Gene the appraiser knows John Lear and offers to do an appraisal in exchange for this UFO info. Bob is not the UFO guy, doesn't like the topic, doesn't think it's credible, and then suddenly gets hired out there. It is a lot to swallow that he was able to do it.
Yeah, it was that 4 months between the summer of '88 and in December when Bob got hired. We gave him some pieces of information, said just look into this, and one of them was the YY-2 facility, and the other was the Excalibur, and there was one more thing, and this is really secret information. And so he talked to his friends back at Los Alamos, and they said, yeah, there's such a place as that. Now, that doesn't mean that's where they keep the aliens, but there was definitely a secret place. And so then he got interested, and that's when he called Dr. Teller and asked for the job out there.
We'll come back to some.
Excuse me, George, in case you hear some paper unfolding here, I'm unfolding a copy of Bob Lazar's personal daily calendar he kept on his wall from September of '88 through August of '89, so I'm ready with these dates and entries when we come back.
Yeah, he's ready with December 6th trip to nowhere.
Okay, well, I do want to get into that. I want to jump ahead, and we'll come back to this. I want to jump ahead to the trip out there into the desert 20 years ago tonight. You both, I would assume, remember it pretty well.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me how that came about and what you saw when you got out there. John, why don't we start with you?
Okay, well, the day before, Tuesday, I was over at Bob's house, and he was making me a doggy death ray. And what that was my dogs were getting in Marilee's flowers, and we had to figure out a way to keep them out. So he was making an amplifier that would broadcast a high-pitched sound, which would allegedly keep them out. And in the afternoon, he just said, they're going to test fly a saucer tomorrow night. You want to go see it? And I said, well, how? And he said, well, there's a road on the northeast part of Groom Lake that leads in there, and without violating, their or trespassing, we can go right up to the border and watch it because it'll be coming right above S4. And I said, well, great, yeah, I'd love to do it. And that's how it started.
And Gene, when did he tell you and ask you the same sort of question in the same way?
That's the way it looked from John's viewpoint. Now, behind the scenes, what a lot of people didn't know was going on was, by the way, Marilee is John's wife. We got to watch Talking So Inside here so the listening audience understands who's who when he said Marilee. And so Bob's wife, then wife, they were divorced after this, had an affair. And Bob was, even at that point, kind of distraught. Bob is a peculiar personality in that he loves women, and it's not a sexual thing. It's Bob will do anything for women, and it could be. He used to be in love with John's 80-year-old mother, Moya. He would do anything for her. Our 4-year-old little girl, he'd teach her a science lesson. Now, Bob is adopted, and a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists and armchair therapists say that, Bob's mom gave him away, and so therefore he spends his life trying to appeal to women. I mean, I don't know if there's any substance to that. Certainly it's not anything to do with his mother. His mother, Phyllis, is as wonderful of a mother as any man could ever have, so it's not like he was lacking anything in his actual life. The people that adopted him were a wonderful couple. And but anyway, Bob's wife had an affair, and he was actually taking her out there to impress her, to try and keep her, and we were excess baggage. I mean, I was happy to just be in on it, and I'm sure John was too, and I would have done anything to be included with that trip. But I told John, we spoke a little bit this afternoon, that I don't think if Bob hadn't been trying to impress his wife to keep her and do anything he could to attract her back to him, I don't think any of us would have been taken out to see this. But as long as he was taking his wife out there, we got to go too. And I think he also wanted a couple of gregarious characters like John and I. He knew he was going to blow the lid off this thing, and he was going to need somebody to speak publicly to back him up if he got caught.
Well, it's an interesting point because, a lot of people have asked in the years since, why would Bob violate his security oath? Why would he spill these beans? Why would he risk going to prison by talking about this stuff or by taking you guys out there and showing you the tests? And I guess you've just answered it.
Right.
He was trying to hang on to his wife.
Yeah, we weren't hanging around having a beer, and he said, hey, you guys want to go see a flying saucer? He's not that kind of guy. In fact, Bob was, while he was in this, I mean, he was a very peculiar personality. Here's a conversation with Bob. Oh, I'm exhausted. I'm dead tired. I was up to 3 a.m. last night. Oh, yeah? What were you doing? Why? As though you're prying into his life. It's just a casual conversation. He would start a conversation, and you just ask a question any friend would, and then he'd act like you were prying into his personal life. But he was paranoid. The people, Mike Thigpen, well, that's a long story. Anyway, who were they from?
OFI?
Yeah,
Office
the
of Federal
OFI.
Investigation.
They were doing the security checks at his house in the middle of the night, and a lot of big things going on that in Bob's personal life, and so he had a lot of stress. He was had the possibility of losing his wife. He was in the most secret and wonderful program that a scientist could ever dream of being in. He couldn't tell his wife. He couldn't tell his friends. And when he finally broke, we were blessed because of it.
So who goes out? How many of you went? 4? Just the 4?
Yeah. John and Bob and Tracy, Bob's ex-wife, and me in John's RV the first night. You take it from there, John.
Yeah, we left my house about, I think it was about 7 o'clock, and we drive out there, and we're driving up that long hill there just before you get to the pass, and the transmission broke down. And so Gene agreed to hike down to Alamo there, or to Rachel, or to Alamo, and get some transmission fluid. So we were delayed about an hour while he goes down and gets it. We poured it in. It works again. We drive up. We get to the cutoff, the Groom Lake Road there, and drive down that long dirt road. So it's about 8:15, 8:30, and we drive down this long road to about as far as we thought we could go without getting in trouble. And then we pull over. We get out. I had my 8-inch Celestron telescope, which I set up, and Bob said it's going to be at 9 o'clock. They test at 9 o'clock. So we all waited, and I'm trying to focus in the Celestron 8, which, is really tough to do. And there it comes, right against the hill, just as advertised, at 9 o'clock. And this thing comes up and starts flying around. And, of course, it's very difficult to focus with the Celestron 8, and I couldn't get focused until it stopped in midair and started descending. And that's when I said, I got it. And, what I saw was a flying disc. It was oriented about 45 degrees to the horizon. It was radiating a yellowish, goldish kind of stuff that was coming off it. And I said, here, quick, Gene, take a look. And as I stepped back, I hooked my foot around the tripod and moved the telescope. And, of course, Gene's never forgiven me.
It was the most tragic trip ever in history. An extraterrestrial disc in the middle of an 8-inch Celestron telescope, and John's hooked the tripod and jarred it, and then the disc had gone down below the mountain range. But
could you see it with your naked eye?
well, we had binoculars out there,
right.
too. Oh, yeah, and he's right about the glow coming off of it and everything that happened. You know, another peculiar thing was this past Sunday, a week ago today, my son Daniel turned 20, and, of course, which means that, you know,